now we're going to switch gears and talk about Anek, which all three of us got to watch in theaters, luckily, this past weekend.
We did. And
at
we all came back with such mixed messages about it. So let's talk about Anek.
Let's talk about Anek.
Well, let me tell you, this was a great movie to see in the theaters. Anek, told the story about an undercover cop named Joshua, played by Ayushmann Khurrana, and he was, kind of playing two sides with the state of India and the Northeast region, trying to gain intel on some of these insurgency groups rising. And through that, we meet a lot of different characters, one of those being Ido, played by Andrea Kevichusa, who is a boxer who's training for ultimately a worldwide boxing championship, but she's from the Northeast region and faces a lot of discrimination. And we see that very early on in the beginning of this movie, just with the different interactions of her and the other people within Delhi. Joshua is going on this mission, and he's essentially, as he's gathering intel, he finds out that Ido's father, Wang Now, played by Mifama Sol, is a school teacher who's covertly leading a rebel group and trying to overthrow the forces up there that kind of keep the Northeast region under control. So throughout this entire movie, I really learned, a lot of different real world politics that are happening right now in India. I was being educated by M throughout the entire movie, and she was ultimately my source towards understanding this movie to its full potential. So would love to pass the mic over to M to really talk about what that entails.
We were just about to start getting my perspective on Anek, which, that was a bumpy ride, y'all. So I feel like this is the first time in my life where everybody questions their Indian American identity, especially when you are, of dual, I want to say, it's hard being of one nationality, but your actual heritage and your culture and your roots are from somewhere else. And you're constantly juggling between two spaces. I have never really felt more like I'm not Indian than when I was watching this movie. I won't lie to y'all. Not because of the message, but because of my inability to understand the message. And I don't want to say this movie was poor or bad by any means, because it really wasn't. I just don't think I was a target demographic and was not the target audience. And sitting in the theater, I was just so lost. M had to be the one to constantly explain everything to me, and Michael kept jumping in because luckily they had watched the movie, they understood, and they were jumping in to answer all of my questions. But I think the issue can be easily broken down into a few pieces. One, I did not understand the conflict with Northeast India until I looked it up. In the interval, I sat down and I said, what is the conflict that's happening? What was the issue? And although it wasn't difficult, I just had no idea that was an issue that had happened. So first, understand your politics before you go watch Anek. Second, if you don't understand how the Indian government works, you will have a little bit of trouble understanding the motives of the character and the motivations of, I guess, the larger institution throughout this movie. So for me, I was when it came to that struggle between should we actually find peace or, do we control these states through war? Which is better? Why are we so unable to find a solution? Why are we unable to come to a peaceful resolution? And then it becomes revealed that the Indian government really doesn't exactly want peace, because you can't control people through peace. You can control them through war. And although that was straightforward, wasn't easy to understand, again, where the Indian government's motivation was coming from for those reasons. And also, I think it's hard to understand the sentiments of the local people in the movie without, again, understanding the background of how they feel, what they feel, and their struggle and their discrimination and prejudice. I just had no idea what was happening out in the world. So I didn't realize that that's how they felt. And it was kind of hard putting together the pieces of this movie, even though everybody's acting was flawless. I don't think there were too many problems with the scripts. I think the cinematography was perfectly fine. It's just so hard to follow a story that you have no background on. And I also have one bone to pick with whoever made the soundtrack of this movie, because there were so many random clicking noises throughout it. I'm pretty sure my ADHD activated, and I don't even think I have ADHD, and it activated because there were just typewriter noises in the background and clicking noises constantly. And I was I don't know who made the conscious decision to put these small irk factors into the sounds in the background, but it didn't mix. And there were pieces where you would like be watching dead bodies. You would literally be looking at characters dying, and it's like a dark setting, and everything is quiet, and there's dead bodies. And suddenly this song, it's like, oh, mama, hey, mama, what's up happening, mama? And I'm like, oh, where did that come from? Like, what is happening right now? So music, background score, whoever was in charge of that, don't be. In the future, don't be. But aside from that, it was still beautifully done. I love the actors. I think Ayushmann Khurrana absolutely stole the show. Beautifully done. I never had any bone to pick with Ido, Wang Nao, all of the characters who played, Nico's mother, Emma, like phenomenal acting. I do want to give a special shout out to the actor that did play Nico's mother. Her crying and running away in that one scene, commendable. That was commendable. I really felt the emotion on the screen.
Performance of some of these supporting actors and actresses was just absolutely amazing. I think Emma and I were talking about this, that Ayushmann Khurrana really did, similar to Tom Cruise and Top Gun Maverick, he really allowed there to be room for some of these great performances, not only within some child actors and actresses, but as well as some, really good supporting roles, such as Nico's mother. I agree. That was a fantastic performance. Easily dropped dead Hollywood performance of a mother who just lost her son. Mm-hmm. And the effect of the way they shot that, the way she reacted, had a walk off. And, there were also many scenes that were taken with what looked like it was just one take, like 5 minute, just like one take scenes that were just really well shot as well. So I thought the overall production of this was fantastic. Do agree. I had to get educated on like the politics and the history of kind of what's going on to really be able to understand it, and just kind of keep track of characters too and what their motives are, what they're trying to do in the film. A lot of that you had to kind of learn as you were watching it. So if you missed out on it, early on, it was very hard to get a good sense of it until much later in the film. But other than that, I mean, this movie really, really took it home.
Absolutely. So for me, I thought Anek was a very intelligently written script. And it was not only intelligent from the perspective of understanding the characters and also creating the characters really well, because if those characters were not the characters that they were, the story wouldn't have come together in terms of questioning certain things, right? The questions wouldn't have come about. So that's one. Secondly, I thought it brought up very brave questions. A movie to bring up those questions this boldly is a very big thing, especially in India, where right now anybody who asks very bold questions is just shut down, right? So I think those two things were very important for it. So the first character is the first protagonist being Joshua, right? As somebody who's an undercover agent, he has two identities, one of Aman, the real person that he is, and second of Joshua, the person he's acting to be, the person who's integrated himself with the local people. Now, while integrating himself with the local people, he gets to see two aspects. One is a job that he's doing for the Indian government, which is to figure out what the rebels are up to. He's actually collecting intel, but also in the process of creating intel, he's creating hurdles for the rebels by creating another rebel group. And that's what he's done. His job has been to create hurdles for rebels by breaking them down, by making sure that there's no unity amongst local people. And he is the culprit there because he has created those people. But at the same time, he gets to see on a daily basis the human aspect of the struggle, the human aspect of why they're rebelling in the first place. What are the reasons? What is their life like? What is their struggle like? Why does the kid not want to live with his mom, but wants to go to a village and fight? Why does he have the situation when the kid does get picked up and taken by the Indian government people into prison, and the situation in the prison? He sees the inhumanity of the situation firsthand. It could convert even a simple thinking person into a rebel. So he sees both ends of both spectrums of the situation, and that's what gets him questioning if the government is interested in just signing a peace accord, or the government wants actual peace. Because if the government does want actual peace, they need to figure out what the people want, not what they should. The government should not be working against the will of the people then. Right? Because by doing things that the people don't want them to do, the government is alienating them anyway. So those are the questions that Joshua starts asking. Then the second protagonist is Ido. She feels that if she is better than the rest, she can become a good representative and amalgamate her people to the rest of the country. So she suffers, but she still works very hard at what she knows best, so that she can be the face of her people. Now, again, representation is important. When you tell me that you don't know anything about Northeast, I didn't know anything about Northeast, or Michael has never heard anything about Northeast, that's because stories have not been told about Northeast. Why do people know about Kashmir? It's because stories have been told about Kashmir. But stories have not been told about Northeast at all. This is probably the first story being told about what's going on there in the first place. Now, when stories are not told, when media is muzzled, when wrong stories are told, in fact, a movie being made about a woman, a winner from Northeast, Mary Kom, did not have a Northeastern woman playing Mary Kom. It had Priyanka Chopra playing Mary Kom. If I were a Northeastern woman, I would have really felt bad about it. It was like stealing their glory.
Her casting was also a controversy. I remember it was a very controversial subject picked up by the media back when it happened too.
Why wasn't a Northeastern woman picked up to play Mary Kom when Mary Kom is a Northeastern woman? Why? That's because nobody knows anybody in the Northeast. So this was a very brave thing for the director and the makers to do, to bring all these actors who actually look Northeastern, are Northeastern, speak the language, eat that food, to give them a center stage and have them tell a story. That was important. Now, the third very important protagonist in the movie was Abrar, Manoj Pawa. And that is a very important twist in the entire tale, because he is Joshua's boss, and he's the guy who's actually doing the work of the Indian government. And why is he important is because he understands what the Indian government is doing. He is a Kashmiri Muslim. So he knows what the Indian government has done to Kashmiri Muslims in Kashmir. Exactly this template. They haven't cared about what the people want. They haven't cared about what the people think. But they've done exactly the same thing, gone there, danced around, eaten the food, worn the clothes, taken some pictures, played football, and come back and signed an accord. Exactly what he's doing in the in the Northeast. So he knows the template very well. But when Joshua questions him and says, why can't we do something else? Because this is not, are you sure this is the right thing to do? Remember, there's a sentence he says, either everybody gets the same thing or nobody gets it. So he is biased. He feels that if Kashmir can get it, why should these people too? If the Kashmiris don't deserve it, why should these people deserve it? So this entire struggle, Northern struggle, is personal for his boss as well. And it's it's never stated, but when he's flying where the aircraft is about to land in the northeastern state that they don't even identify, by the way. The aircraft is about to land. He says something in Farsi that couplet is for Kashmir. He actually says the same couplet for the northeastern states because it's the same situation. It looks really beautiful from the top, but when you go and land there and start living there, you see what hell it is because people are dying. People are getting killed and nobody really cares. All they care about is that there is, the press thinks, the media thinks that there is peace on paper, whereas there's no peace. So I think the movie was extremely brave in bringing all of this hypocrisy out, talking about this hypocrisy and bring it out, because in the end, what he does is he doesn't kill the guy. He doesn't kill Wangno. And he tells his boss, I didn't kill him.
I think that was very well said. And like whenever you're watching this movie, you definitely get a sense that this is the message that they're trying to convey. There's a lot of times in which they're very, very explicit about the themes that they're wanting to tell, the stories and the counter stories to those that they're trying to get across. And for Shreya and I, and even yourself, who didn't know much about kind of what was going on in the Northeast, by drawing on that parallel with Kashmir, and with a lot of us being familiar about what's going there, drawing that parallel to the Northeast, really allows the audience to kind of take away, essentially the overall message in a very digestible way. So I thought I came across very well, but they did a very good job about it. Sometimes they were maybe a little too explicit and could have let just like the script and the cinematography and everything, maybe speak for itself a little bit more. I think that would be my only critique is like, the movie itself could speak for itself. I think there were times where they were very, very, very direct in terms of like the monologues that Joshua would have, et cetera, or the conversation. So, but nonetheless, well said. I think it came across.
And then another thing
well.
that I wanted to point out before we wrap up is that nowhere in the movie do they become judgmental towards the rebels at any point in time, or brand them or judge them as anti-nationals or terrorists or any of them. Never do. They don't cross the line at all. They don't brand them. They're not judgmental. They are very humane in their treatment towards their cause. So at no point in time are the rebels being shown as anti-national. They just have a cause.
Of course. And I think the only issue that I might have had, which again, very small, is even though you can understand a lot of motivations from the characters in each side, I think the situational descriptors were a little lacking. So for example, you will always understand the motivations of each side or each character, that like, why are they doing what they're doing? What is their overall purpose in the movie? But you won't always understand the exact moment of what is happening on camera. Like sometimes someone will go to see someone's shooting will just come out of nowhere. And it's up to you to put the pieces together based on the people you see. They won't say like, oh, we're in this situation, the rebels are coming after us and these men are coming after us and now we have to run. Like you won't ever understand who is the good guy and who is the bad guy. Just like Em had mentioned, you never really know because nobody's really branded. You understand everybody's motivation. So she's right. They don't put labels on who is good and who is bad and who to root for in any given situation. So based on what you know about the characters and their individual motivations, once they're all put together in the scenario, it's up to you to decide like what you think is right and what you think is wrong. So I think like if you are following very closely, you will most likely be able to make that judgment on your own. If not, you might find it a little difficult to follow along with the movie and what's happening, at least pre-interval. So that is something to watch out for. But
I would love to see what happens if we watch this a second time around too. I feel like this is definitely a movie where you watch it a second, third, fourth time around. Each iteration of you watching it, you come away with something more. Have not watched it a second time, but I'm sure after having done so, a lot of the things in the beginning that made sense later on in the film will make sense right from the get-go. And you can probably extract away even better appreciation or just, taking home the theme from this movie.
Pretty sure. And, the movie is streaming, it's playing in theaters right now, will be streaming on Netflix very soon. So yes, you might have the opportunity of watching it over and over again once it arrives on Netflix. But yes, the movie does raise very important questions about national identity and if everyone has the right to the same identity. And if not, why? Why do people of the same country not have the right to the same national identity?